Okay, good afternoon, everybody. Welcome back to week 6 of Cook Along with Chef Tom at the Hackney School of Food. As you well know by now, my name is Tom. I have the lovely Catherine with me today. She is going to be helping us out with questions. So if you do have any questions, pop them in the chat box, guys. We'll be also putting in the recipe for what we're doing today. We're doing chocolate beetroot brownies. A really, really amazing recipe that it has a classic origins in the chefs and schools tale. But before we tell you about that, a very quick couple of things, because we need to make sure that there are some things happening right now that we need to be on. So firstly, your oven should be set to 170 degrees. That's a fan-assisted oven. A non-fan assisted oven should be 180, or gas mark 3. So nice, not too hot, nice and warm. We want our brownies to be nice and squidgy, so 170 gas mark 3 or 180 for non-fan. The other thing that we'll need to do is, because we're going to be melting chocolate, what I have done, so there's two ways of doing this, so I'll explain. Firstly is we're going to melt the chocolate and butter together. So what I've got is a saucepan with my chocolate already weighed and my butter already chopped. And in the bottom of my saucepan, I've got some water. Now, it's really important that the water doesn't touch the bottom of the bowl. We want that steam to start melting things. So I've got my water, and I'm going to turn that on. So about a medium-high heat. Now, if you haven't done that already, don't worry. What I would do is boil the kettle now, and then while I'm talking, you should have enough time for it to boil. Pop that in the saucepan, and then also we're going to add in here. So add into your bowl chocolate and butter, and Catherine's going to be adding in the recipe as we talk. So it's going to be 200 grams of dark chocolate and 100 grams of unsalted butter. So that's in our bowl already. You'll see I've cubed up the butter so that it's just broken down nice and easily. If it's been out of the fridge for a little while, even better. And I've got these lovely kind of niblets of dark chocolate. They're going to melt even easier. If you have a slab of chocolate or a bar of chocolate, the best thing to do is wrap them in a tea towel, get yourself a nice big rolling pin, and smash, smash, smash. Because you want to break that chocolate down. The smaller the pieces, the quicker it will melt, and the sooner you can enjoy your brownies. So that's what's happening now. Your oven's 170 degrees, or gas mark 3. You're either boiling the kettle, or you've got your saucepan with water on. Just bear in mind, guys, that you can see how it sits on top. Okay, my water's about here, and the bottom of my bowl's about here. You have to be careful with this one because there's lots of steam. So we've gone straight into the action today with getting our chocolate and our butter inside our bowl, which is on top of a saucepan, which is just coming up to the boil. And that's 200 grams of dark chocolate, 100 grams of unsalted butter. That's melting away. Cube the butter so it's nice and small. And if you don't have little nibbly bits of chocolate, as I said, get that rolling pin and start smashing inside a tea towel. So your chocolate's all nice and small and your butter's all nice and broken down. So that's the first thing. We're going straight into it. So we're melting chocolate and butter together. The other way of doing it, if you don't have a saucepan to hand or you just want to use the microwave, absolutely fine. Pop them into a microwavable dish or plastic bowl or whatever, and you're going to microwave them on a medium-high heat for about a minute at each time. Take it out, give it a mix. If it's not melted, pop it back in for another minute. You don't want to just put it in and have it there for 5, 10, 20 minutes because you might burn the chocolate. It has to be slowly, slowly in the microwave. That's why I prefer to do this saucepan and bowl method. This is called a bain-marie. Okay? It's water bath. Or double boiler, lots of different names for it. I prefer it this way because the steam is a bit more gentle and you can sort of get on with the other things that we have to do with our cooking. So that's the first thing we've done, remember guys. Chocolate and butter melting our way over a saucepan full of water. If it's boiling, please be careful. Kids, adults, I know you tune in as well, so please just keep an eye on them. Your ovens are on 170 degrees. Or if you're melting the chocolate and the butter together, you can pop that in the microwave for 1 minute at a time, like so. Now that that's done, being sorted, a quick little update about what we're doing today. We're hitting the ground running today, so I'm going to slow it down, giving you a chance to catch up and making sure that we have all the bits and pieces together. So, chocolate and butter, sorted. Our chocolate beetroot brownies, as I say, they're a classic recipe from chefs in schools. When Nicole first joined Gayhurst School as part of the Leap Federation, became the head chef there, she introduced lots of different new things, new flavours of food, new techniques of cooking, reskilling the kitchen staff there to create absolutely amazing, delicious food, and just creating a really lovely environment for people to talk about food. As part of Chefs in Schools' revolution of school food, it's about the culture, but it's also about education. And that's part of where Hackney School of Food is born from, is that trying to have a dedicated teaching kitchen for educating anything from food. We have things to grow, we have things to pick, we have things to eat, we have things to cook. Lots of different things here at the Hackney School of Food. But it all has its origins, those first few years of Nicole being at Gayhurst School. And this is a recipe from there. So basically, we take a beetroot, which is lovely and sweet. We have cooked beetroot today. Okay, it's nice and sweet. We grate that into our brownie. It creates a delicious flavour. It's packed full of nutrition. But it also means that we can reduce the amount of sugar. So these brownies, I'm not going to say that a brownie is healthy. They're not the same thing. We're still adding sugar. We're still adding lots of yummy things to it. But it makes that treat a little bit, you know, you can feel a bit better about it. And those beetroots make it nice and squidgy. I like a nice squidgy brownie. So you're adding a nice little bit of moisture and all that. That's really lovely inside. So this was the idea. Chefs in Schools brought this idea of reducing sugar, but adding fruits and vegetables in it, getting people to think. I say people, it's not just the children, it's the staff, it's the parents, having all this massive conversation around food. That's really what Chefs in Schools is all about. We're really happy that we now have this lovely teaching kitchen, Hackney School of Food, and we are very excited that in a few weeks' time we'll be getting kids back in here so that we can do this face-to-face, because as I've always said, really love teaching, cooking, talking, all this all together, all about the food. It's brilliant. With our recipe, we're going to get those together now. So with our beetroot, okay, so our beetroot here, remember guys, this is cooked beetroot, so it's really important that it's cooked because it's nice and juicy. Don't worry if you haven't been able to get hold of cooked beetroot. You can use the raw stuff. What that means is just it's going to have a bit more of beetroot flavour. You're not intensifying the sugars. You're still going to have a nice bit of moisture in it. Absolutely fine. So this is about 400 grams, or 3 of those nice large medium-sized ones. I've got 5 small ones. So 400 grams, or 3 medium, 5 small. We've also then got 100 grams of flour. Now I'm using spelt flour today. You can also use plain flour, or wholemeal, or any gluten-free flour that you feel. And I've also got some cocoa powder in here as well. That's 100 grams of flour of your choice, and 2 teaspoons of cocoa powder. We are using sugar. Remember, this is a brownie. We've got some nice extra sweet flavours. So I'm using golden caster sugar today, but light brown sugar. They're fairly interchangeable when we're talking things about brownies. Bit different when we're making sponges, but golden caster sugar or light brown sugar, it's 150 grams. And we're also using 3 medium-sized free-range eggs. Okay, so Catherine's very, very helpfully popped our ingredients in our chat box. We also need to add a bit more flavour, and we've got a little bit of vanilla, and that is 1 teaspoon of vanilla. If you are wanting to turn this into dairy-free, you can just replace the butter with margarine or vegan spreads, non-dairy spreads. And if you can't eat eggs, not to worry. What we have in this bit, I'm going to show a nice close-up of this for you. This is ground flax seed. So it might be called linseed, flax seed. Basically these little guys here. You can see I've already started to grind them. So I've got a pestle and mortar. And what I do is I just grind until I break up so that's the seed. You kind of break it up. These are packed full of protein. So you grind, or you can put it in a spice grinder, coffee grinder, anything like that. And there's 3 tablespoons of flaxseed in there. And what you do is you just add in some recently boiled water, so it doesn't have to be super, super hot. But for every 1 spoonful of flaxseed, you add 2 spoonfuls of boiling hot water, or just off the boiled water. And it will look a little bit soupy to begin with. This is a bit too liquidy. But if we leave that alone, give it a good stir, then leave it alone, the protein in there is going to soak up the water. And then this turns into this nice binding agent which we need. So that is a really good replacement for eggs. A flaxseed egg is how I like to refer to it. And that's 1 tablespoon of ground flax seeds, or linseeds is their other name, and 2 tablespoons, 1 to 2 is the ratio, so it's 3 tablespoons of flax seeds to 6 tablespoons of hot water. Okay? That is just your alternative to an egg. We don't have to use it if you've got your eggs. That I'm just showing so that everyone can be involved, and I hope everyone at home is cooking along nicely. Okay, things that we need to make this. So we need a grater and a plate for our brownie. We need a bowl and a whisk for our sugar and eggs. And we also need, as I said earlier, guys, we need a bowl on top of now boiling water in a saucepan. You can see it's beginning to melt here. And this is called a maurice, okay? So it's one of those flexible spatulas, a maurice, okay? I'm just letting this chocolate and butter melt. If you give that a stir now, what will happen is all that lovely hot chocolate that's at the bottom is going to help you melt things a little bit quicker. You really don't want any lumps in this. You want all that butter to be nice and smooth. But there we go. Okay, you can see I've got a bit of butter in there. I'm going to leave that for a little bit longer to continue. So we've got lots of things going on straight away today, guys. I hope you are keeping up with us. As I say, we have all the ingredients we've just popped in the chat box. Very simple. Beetroots, sugar, eggs, flour, cocoa powder, butter and chocolate, and vanilla. Alternatives are your flax eggs for your replacement for eggs, non-dairy margarine or veg spread, and gluten-free flour if you've got it. So really lovely thing here. On top of all the ingredients we're using to mix the batter, we also have a baking tray, and that's got a little bit of butter in it, which we're going to grease later on. So it's going to go into the oven. Remember, your ovens are set to 170 degrees C or gas mark 3. So hopefully you've got your equipment, hopefully you've got your ingredients all together. As I say, guys, this is a really classic recipe, and it's such a good brownie that I actually prefer this brownie to normal brownies. I will talk to you about little alternatives you can add to this later on, but we've won people over to beetroots with this recipe. And I'll tell you a little bit about that, but first of all, let's get grating. So we're going to take the largest area on our grater, and we're just going to grate this cooked beetroot. Because it's cooked, it's going to go really, really quickly. Don't worry, if you've got these little kind of extra bits, those can go straight into the mix as well. Don't worry at all about that. This bit is where your fingers do begin to look like you've been painting with them. You know, turn this nice, beautiful crimson cerise. As you're grating, do watch those fingernails. We don't want any fingernails in the mix. Not crunchy, not that great to taste. Here we go. So the beetroot is cooked. As you cook beetroot, and you can buy cooked beetroot in the shops or buy raw and cook yourself. You just cook it for about 45 minutes to an hour in the oven and then take the skin off once it's cooled down. If you cook it, you're intensifying the sweetness, and the sweetness is what we're doing, what we want out of this beetroot today. Obviously, lots of lovely flavour coming from it and nutrients from our vegetables. But there we go, we have a plate now of grated beetroot. I'm just going to quickly pop back over to my chocolate, which looks like it's melted. We want to make sure that everything's melted. We also want to make sure that when it comes to mixing this into our recipe later on, it's not warm. Because if we add warm chocolate to cracked eggs, then we end up with a kind of a scrambled egg brownie, and that is not very fun for anyone involved. Okay, so being careful, guys. Hopefully you've got a tea towel or something just to hand. Grab the edge of your bowl and turn off your hob. That's going to cool down gently. This hot water we can put in the sink, and that'll help us start doing the washing up as well. So the chocolate, you should be able to see now, nice and shiny, okay? Got that lovely shine to it. That's the butter melting into it. No lumps at all. If we stir it a few times now, just as it's come off the heat, you're going to cool that down a lot quicker, because you're adding in kind of the cooler air around it. Okay, but we still have some other things to do, so it will cool down by the time we come to use it. But that is our chocolate and butter melted. Mix together until it's all smooth. We've grated our beetroot brownie. I'm going to leave that to one side. The next thing, we're going to weigh out our sugar. So the sugar, as you can see, I've already weighed mine out here today, cheating a little bit. But the sugar is 150 grams of either light brown sugar or golden caster sugar. 150 grams. And just make sure there's no lumps into it once you've done that. And then we're going to make a little well right in the middle. Those wells, remember, are going to help us keep things where they are. So the well's right in the middle of the bit. And we're just going to crack our eggs. Remember, one way that I do it, if you've joined us for any eggs before, guys, is just crack it on the side, and you can drop it in. I find this an easier way to crack eggs because you can then easily open it up, put it right where you want to it, and you don't have the mess of sometimes when you crack an egg on the side of a bowl, it ends up on the side of the bowl rather than where it needs to be, which is inside. So we have our 3 eggs and our sugar in here. At this point, guys, if you wanted to use your flax egg, you can see the difference. It's kind of like a jelly, sort of like a frog spawn type thing here. That's the protein coming out. If you're using flaxseed egg as a replacement for egg, this is now when you would add it in here with the sugar. Okay, so that's where your replacement comes. Everyone else, if you're not using that, don't worry about what I've just said about that. So we have our sugar, our eggs, and we're now going to put in a teaspoon of vanilla. I'm using vanilla extract, so it's a nice way of adding a little bit of a flavour. I'm getting our whisk, and we're going to whisk it together. We're going to start off slowly, so we're going to break the yolks of the egg. Start off slowly, incorporating the sugar as we mix, and then going around the outside. And every so often just stopping to make sure there's no lumps. If there's a bit more lumps, you just kind of concentrate on the lumpy bit. From now, we want to start increasing the speed. So if you're doing this by hand, you can adjust the speed as you work. If you've got one of those hand mixers, then you can just go a little bit higher and higher. And you want to make a bit of a froth. So what's happening here is we're whisking air into our mixture. And that air is going to help bring a nice light fluffy batter, which is going to create a really lovely texture in our brownie later on. So you can see nice big whisks. If I stop whisking for a second, you'll get to see some bubbles in here. I want to go a little bit longer. It needs to be kind of like a fancy coffee, like a frothy coffee on top. Nice cappuccino, whatever you're into, like that, guys. There we go. So a nice froth on top. That's shown me that I've got lots of really lovely, lots of air with those lovely bubbles inside. Okay. Sugar, 150 grams, 3 eggs, and a teaspoon of vanilla in here. Once we've done that now, we're going to add in our grated beetroot. This is where we turn our lovely mixture a very beautiful bright pink. Okay, all that goes in there, and then we just mix it together. And you'll see that the colour of the beetroot begins to change that egg and sugar mix. You get this lovely earthy flavour coming from the beetroot. Remember that cooked beetroot adding a bit of sweetness. So normally when you make brownies, you're probably looking at about 250, 300 grams of sugar in a recipe of this size. By adding beetroot, you can see we've actually cut that by half. So it does make this a lot better. Try not to have as much sugar as possible. So there we have our eggs, sugar, vanilla, and beetroot all together, whisked. In our other bowl, can you see here? Now, if you're doing this, if you're weighing this as we go, guys, absolutely fine. I've cheated a little bit this week and have pre-weighed things while I was showing the pictures yesterday. But in here, guys, I've got 100 grams of spelt flour. Now, you can either use plain or wholemeal, your gluten-free alternative. and then 2 really big teaspoons of cocoa powder. This is going to make it taste super, super chocolatey. I, as I say, have used dark chocolate in my mix, and this works well with the beetroot, but a milk chocolate would be okay. White chocolate, you just have a really, really pink brownie. And white chocolate's very, very sweet. Okay? It actually doesn't have any cocoa in it. It's mainly cocoa fat, cocoa butter, vanilla and sugar. So it's very sweet. So if you do end up using this recipe to make a white chocolate, I would take another 50 grams of sugar out. So you're counteracting the amount of sugar that's already in here. And then we're just going to pour gently our flour, and we're going to gently mix. Okay, so gently mix that in. We don't want to beat it too quickly, because what might happen is you might get lumps of flour. We don't want any lumpy flour. So doing this gently is going to give you a nice smooth batter. You can see I start off in the middle, and then once the middle bit's done, bring the outside in and start in the center again. Okay, bring the outside in and center. So at this point we have a beetroot cake, basically. This isn't quite a brownie yet. Giving that a good stir until all of the flour has been mixed in. You can't see any lumps, you can't see any bits there. There we go. Giving it a little tap to make sure that none of the beetroot's stuck on your whisk. And then we can pop that into the sink. We're finished with this. And now we're going to bring over our cooled chocolate butter mix. As I say, this is really important that it's cooled down. So we don't want to scramble the eggs while they're in here. Maurice, very helpful little sous chef here. Maurice is really good because what the flexibility does is it allows you to sort of really get in the sides and pour that like so. There we go. Get all of that lovely chocolate butter mix inside, nice and shiny. Okay. Unfortunately, we're not going to lick the bowl here because we want to have all that chocolate mix right in the brownie mix. And this time we're going to use a technique known as folding. And folding is very similar to how we did our gentle whisking earlier. We go around the outside and fold over. What this does is it just makes sure that all that air that we've beaten into the sugar, all those frothy bits, we don't want to knock the bubbles out. Okay? By being gentle, by folding, so you go around the outside and then fold into the middle, you're creating a really nice gentle motion, which means that those bubbles are going to stay where they should be, inside the brownie mix, not popped. And you keep going until all of that colour is one and the same. Okay, we don't at the moment, you can sort of see there's marbling with lighter bits. Here we go. Once you've done that, that brownie mix is ready to bake. Before it goes in the oven, we're just going to quickly grab our tray with our butter and spread that all over the bottom of our baking tray. This sort of size tray with this batter, the idea is that we're going to get about 16 pieces out of it. So get that right in the corners, up the sides as well, because we don't want the sides to stick. And there we go. Absolutely covered in it. And then now that we've got this all greased and ready to go, pour that in. Again, using your Maurice. If you don't have a Maurice, guys, a wooden spoon or a normal spoon, really helpful, just to get all of that batter inside. There we go. Scrape it off. It's really important as well now that we don't just leave it. You can see I actually got a sort of a flatter edge this side. I'm just going to give it a little shake. So we go 1, 2 sideways, 1, 2 forwards, backwards, and give it one gentle tap on the bottom. This means it's nice and flat, which means it's going to cook beautiful, nice and evenly, and we won't have dry bits and undercooked bits. So, quickly just going to wash my hands to get rid of that buttery chocolate mess. Anything that you've got on the side, you can pop over to the sink. Make sure your oven's about to go in. Remember guys, your ovens are set to 170 degrees or gas mark 3. And before I pop this in, I'm going to give you a very quick recap of what we've done, how to get to this stage. We have melted our chocolate and butter together. Then once it's all smooth, we have made sure there's no bits in it. Then we've taken it off the heat and we've cooled it down. Then we've grated our beetroot. We've weighed our sugar and cracked in our eggs with a teaspoon of vanilla, and we've whisked that so it's frothy and bubbly. We've then added the beetroot into that egg, sugar, vanilla mix, and then gently whisk that. Again, we're trying not to bump any of the bubbles out. Once we've got that mixture, so it's a bright pink mixture, we've then weighed in our flour and cocoa. And again, we've kind of gently started the middle by mixing so there's no bubbles. Then we go round the outside and come back together in the middle. Then round the outside, come back together in the middle. Then we pour in our cooled chocolate and butter mix, and that folding, round the outside, fold, round the outside, fold. Chocolate is ready. So now we're going to pop you over to the oven. Okay, as I said, 170 degrees, guys. That should be ready. I'm going to pop you over to the next camera so you can see, keep me going. Okay, so oven. If you've got a fan oven, what you want, the fan is in the middle. So the fan is where the hottest part of the oven is. If you've got a gas oven or an oven that doesn't have a fan, then at the top is better. As I say, we're going to go on this. I'm going to start my timer for about 15 minutes. And you will see that 15 minutes will go quite quickly. And will be kind of gooey, kind of squidgy. That's going to be great. What we do want to do is your brownies are kind of your own preference. If it's squidgy, you go for a little bit less. If you want it a bit drier, you take it a little bit more. Okay? These are very delicate brownies, so they're not like slabs of chocolate. They are absolutely delicious. While that is baking, I've got a quick thing to show you. So this is something that's going to be, you could take a brownie out on a walk with you, or pop it in your lunchbox when we're allowed to go back to school. But if you want to serve it as a really nice treat for dinners, after dinners, then I'm going to show you how to make sort of a really nice extra serving. So instead of adding cream or ice cream or anything like that, we're going to make a really yummy and slightly, again, we're looking at trying to use natural flavours to create lots of sweetness in it. So I've got some yogurt. Okay, it's about three or four tablespoons of yogurt in here. And then I've got about 100 grams, I would say, 100 grams, 3 to 4 tablespoons. Then I have some fresh berries. Now I've got some raspberries. You can also use frozen ones as well. Okay, frozen ones actually work really well with this because you can mash them down. Just make sure they're defrosted. If you haven't defrosted them, just pop them in the microwave for a couple of minutes until they're nice and soft. Raspberries are my favourite berry, so that's why I've gone raspberries. We also then want an orange, which nearly dropped. I'm a much better chef than I am cricket player. We're going to use orange, or we can use a lemon, which will give you a bit more acidity. If we need to, because it depends on how sour the berries are, we might need to add a little touch, a little tiny touch of sugar, only if we need to, and we'll find that out in just a moment once we've tasted it. A good chef will always taste things as they work, because you need to be happy with the flavours before you serve it to the guests. Okay? If you're not happy with the flavours, your guests probably won't be happy with the flavours. So you have yogurt, berries, orange, and potentially some sugar, but we'll taste that in just a moment. So what we want to do is we're going to take our grater. Now I've got the same grater that I used for the beetroot, but I'm now going to use the smaller, the finer edge, because I'm going to zest. And what that means is we're just going to take this beautiful flavour of the rind, and we're going to grate that down. Just do be careful. You can see as I've grated it, it's still kind of got a pale orange. Don't go down too far. If you take too much of the rind off, you go to the pith. The pith is that white stuff around the orange, and that will give you a very bitter flavour. Okay, I'm going to keep going around, depending on how big your orange is. Depends on how much zest you want in there. I've got a nice normal sized orange, so I'm going to try and get all of it in. Okay, give it a little tap. So there is my zest. I'm going to very quickly show you what I don't want. So if you keep going in one place, you end up with this kind of, well, you can see I've gone too far because I've gone into the fruit, but I've also got this white bit. The white bit is really not very nice to eat. It's very bitter. So we don't want that. Just showing you what we don't want rather than what we do want. Okay. Hold on to your orange. We're going to come back to that in a moment. But the orange zest is just going to sprinkle into our berries. Get it all in there, guys. And then we're going to use the back of the spoon to push the berries down. So we're smashing, we're smooching, whatever technical words you want to use, guys. We're just making the berries into a nice, smooth sort of sauce. Okay. And at this point, you want to take a clean spoon and give it a taste, because this is what's going to tell us if we need any sugar in that. Now, your orange zest should give you a little bit of a nice sweetness to it, and it is very personal in terms of your flavour. But I think that's going to be okay, because if you think about the brownies, which are sweet, you're going to serve this on top of the brownies, they're going to combine together. So always think about your dish as a whole. If one thing is super sweet and the next thing is super sweet, it might be too much for you to eat. If one thing's sweet and one thing is nearly sweet, they'll work really well together. They'll work in a good partnership. So I'm very happy with my raspberry orange mix. What I'll do now with this is I'm just going to take my bowl of yogurt and spoon in my raspberries. And then I'm going to do this. So that folding technique that we talked about earlier, and I'm going to go a little bit at a time with the raspberries. You can see I've got this nice sort of marbling effect going on. I'm not just going to mix it all together. I could do. That would give us a nice, really bright pink yogurt, but I'm just leaving it like this, so we have this sort of marbling effect on it. It's very gently, just gently mixing it through. Very, very calm. Okay, I've got about 6-7 minutes left on my brownies in the oven. What I'm now going to do is I'm going to take the orange skin off. So this is a great way of practicing your knife skills. I am going to use a chef's knife, or at home, guys, if you've got a smaller knife, what we call a paring knife. I'm just getting one out of my drawer here, or even one of these kind of small knives. That's really, really good for this, because especially if you've got small hands, you can kind of move around the orange. And in fact, I'm probably going to do that with this, because we haven't talked about these knives so much in our cook-alongs over the last few weeks. So let's do something a bit different. Okay, I'm going to bring you down nice and close to my chopping board so you can see this. Remember that when we've got to round something that might wobble away off of our chopping board, we want to create a nice stable environment. So we're going to create I'm going to go with claw to begin with, and that's going to just gently chop off. So you can see I'm holding my knife like this. I'm just going to cut down the edge. Okay, maybe going to do another slice just so I can see more of the fruit, not so much of the pith. And now it's going to stay nice and tall for me. Okay. At this point, I actually want to take off the top layer because I can't see where to cut properly. So exactly the same way that I've just done, chopping in. I put my finger on the top of this paring knife to give me some extra pressure. With a small knife, extra pressure with your finger on top is going to be really useful for you. Some of you may have tuned in and say, well, Chef Tom said not to put your finger on top. That's when we're talking about the big knife, okay? Because that's when we get some wobble. You can see how much bigger the knife is. Smaller knife, a lot easier, a lot more control with your finger on top, and you can see why this is from here. Finding the edge of your pith, which is this white bit, and the edge of your fruit, we're going to start cutting. You can see my knife has a bit of an angle, so as we cut down, now I've gone a little bit too much there. I need to go a bit deeper. So I'm going to start again. And the first one is sort of your range finder, shall we call it. This is the bit that we need to make sure, this is how to get your eye in. So once you've got your fruit exposed, got rid of the skin like this, then we're going to cut like this. Now this, I know, guys, is really next level stuff. But at home, you've all been following me along. You've all been really good chefs. I know you're keeping yourself tidy as you work. Tidy chef is a happy chef. But as we work our way around our pith, just every so often stopping and helping to trim off the edges. You can see that with the flat edge of my claw is making sure that my fruit isn't going to wobble around. Now, I did say if you could use a lemon in your raspberry mix earlier on. You probably won't want to do the same thing that I'm doing with this orange with a lemon, because we're going to use these segments in our fruit, in our dessert. And while some of you might like to eat lemon segments, it doesn't quite work with our brownies. There we go. All right, nearly there. You can see that every time I make a cut, it tells me where I can then cut the next time. Every so often, just pausing, having to take a little look just to trim off that white bit. The white bit on the orange is not very nice to eat. It's really, really bitter. There we go. We now have a skinned orange. Wobbly orange, we don't want that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use the claw. The claw's going to wobble. No, what I want to do is use the bridge. So remember, your thumb and finger go either side. Knife goes in the middle. Now this knife is quite small compared to the orange, so we're going to have a few cuts as we work our way down. But that bridge keeps things nice and steady. And now we have our orange in half. And we're going to cut across the segments. So when I say across the segments, they all stay together like this. You'll see that the orange actually has lines on it. So these lines, we don't want to cut down the lines. We want to go in the opposite direction to the lines. Okay, across like so. And there we have our oranges. Okay, a few more minutes left on the brownie. I'm just going to pop over to my oven to check. I'm going to bring you with me this time again. Hopefully you can see me properly. How to check if our brownies are ready. A really good way of doing it is by getting a bamboo skewer or like a little cocktail stick, something like that, just so you can easily, gently poke into your batter mix. And I'm going to grab one and then I'm going to bring you over to the oven, which is going to ping at me in just a little moment. For those of you at home who are cooking along, you might find that your ovens are a bit slower. This giant oven, you can see it's almost half the size of me, is very much an industrial oven. So it cooks things really quickly. Okay, let's have a look. Just be careful when the oven door is open. So this is the thing I'm talking about, a little kind of bamboo skewer here. Taking it out of the oven. Now, the first thing that I notice when I look inside is that none of it is wet or wobbly. If I give it a little shake, nothing moves. If I then take my skewer and poke it right in the middle, as I take it out, you can see I've got a little bit, hopefully it will focus on me, I've got a little bit of the batter onto it. Now, I'm going to stop here because I like that kind of slightly undercooked bit of my brownie. But if you like yours a little bit drier, then you can just cook a little bit longer. Okay, so mine was in the oven for a total of 14 minutes there. But remember, my oven's big, it's powerful, it cooks things a lot quicker. I'm going to leave this to cool very marginally. We can serve it straight away, that's what I'm going to do. I think Catherine's going to be very excited about how I'm going to serve this. Please remember, guys, you'll be very quiet on the chat today, so I'm hoping that you've kept up. I'm hoping you have been following along nice and easily. But we've got a few minutes left of the lesson, so if you have any questions now, pop them in there. But I'm going to serve this. So I'm going to grab myself one of my utensils, not just for show, guys. We do use these day to day. I've got one of these nice big flippers. But you can also use a knife or a palette knife. Something like that will really help you take this apart. Getting a plate and grabbing my brownie. Now, I said we want about 16 slices out of that. How do we make sure we get 16? Well, we have to be careful when we cut this. Okay, so that means we're going to go. If we go down the middle, that's one. So we want to make 3 cuts either way. Okay, so if we cut in the middle like this, you can see this is a really easy way of doing things. I now have 2. Then I cut in half again, that's a quarter. And then the same on the other side. So now we have 4 strips going that way. And we just turn it. And then we start again. Okay. Who ever thinks maths is a little bit boring? Don't use it every day. Well, here we go, guys. We've just done our 4 times table. 4 times 4 is 16. Then you can see they're nice bite-sized things. We're going to pop a couple out in the middle. There we go. One for me, one for Catherine. And if you look at this, guys, you can see my brownie is really gooey in the middle. I give it a little poke down. It's still warm, perfect for serving. If you want to reheat this at all, you can always just pop it back in the oven for five or so minutes at the same temperature. But there we go. One brownie on there. Another plate for me. We're going to add our raspberry marbled yogurt on top. You can see here, guys, you can see it's gone nice pink colour. We've got some orange bits coming through here as well. That, lovely. And then we're going to take some of those orange segments and just pop them on top, like so. In fact, guys, if you wanted to make this a really interesting brownie, when you have your batter mix, you can always lay an orange slice in there and it will bake into it. So you have beetroot and orange brownies. That'd be fantastic. You can also add things like popped corn or seeds or nuts or things like that, and it will make a really extra special brownie. One is going over this way for Catherine. And here's mine, guys. So look at that. We've got our beetroot chocolate brownie with our raspberry marbled yogurt and our orange slice on top for service. And there you are. A fantastic, extra special, extra tasty, extra nutritious dessert. Hope you've enjoyed that. This is a firm favourite amongst the teachers and students we have here at the Hackney School of Food. The first or second time I taught this lesson, it was year 3, one of the children was very adamant that he wasn't going to eat anything with beetroot in. Understandable, I think. You know, it's quite a strong thing to go into, particularly if you're not used to it. And that's why we want to expand people's horizons by twisting things, putting them on their heads. Anyway, by the time he grated the beetroot, made a big old mess, made a fantastic, wonderful brownie, he took one of the spare beetroots that we had and left the kitchen, munching on the brownie, munching on the beetroot as if it was an apple. He didn't even want to know about the brownie. He was too interested in this amazing beetroot. So for those of you who sometimes struggle introducing new flavours, new things to it, persevere, guys. Come at different angles. Think about this. This beetroot brownie is a wonderful way of getting something familiar and adding a twist and creating a new experience. So this is one of our, our core things that we believe at the Hackney School of Food and at Chester Schools, food educators as well. Hopefully you've enjoyed yourselves. Hopefully you've been taking pictures while you've been baking with us this afternoon. Please do tag us at Hackney School of Food, or you can tag us at Chester Schools. Chester Schools on Twitter, Hackney School of Food on Instagram. Please do come and join us next week, week 7. We're going to have a fantastic recipe. We're going to have a really, really nice dish. Particularly now spring is here, we're going to look forward to outside dishes, and we're going to make a jewelled couscous with some really nice courgette fritters. Absolutely delicious, packed full of veggies, packed full of flavour, lots of fun as well. Hopefully you'll join us then, guys. But thank you very much again. Tag us at Hackney School of Food. Join us on the website for next week, and we'll see you soon. Thank you very much.